The looped blue ribbon stands for the prevention of child abuse and neglect. It is worn for the month of April each year to raise awareness about the prevention of child abuse and neglect. We are parents, caregivers, teachers, and community members. We protect our children from abuse and neglect.
Yet child abuse and neglect happens in every month, including April. Many children are not protected. Child abuse and neglect is hard to talk about.
We are horrified by abuse, frightened by neglect, yet we often remain silent in their presence.
There are two groups of individuals directly involved with the families of abused children. One of them meets the family after a child has been abused or neglected. They hear crisis calls, do investigations, conduct interviews, and try and get to the truth. They are formally bound together by the system. They have laws to follow, confidentiality to protect, and courts to work with. They want to protect the children from more pain. Their job is tough, frustrating, and hard to talk about.
The other group is informally linked. This group interacts with families of abused children every day. They live with them, worship with them, go to school with them, and shop with them. Their children share daycare centers and playgrounds. They do not have the formal laws to follow or the rules to guide them. They too want to keep children safe, but often don't understand how. Most of you listening to the Anthology today are part of this group. Today we will show you how what you do in your daily interactions can prevent child abuse and neglect, and you will get a glimpse into the lives of people who work with the abused. We are all trying to do the same thing, keep children safe.
The Blue Ribbon Anthologies, promoting transparency of a complex issue.
I'm her neighbor. She hasn't lived next door for long and keeps to herself. She has a newborn and two other children, a boy and a girl. The boy looks maybe 5. The girl is a young teen. I'm her neighbor, so I can hear things when the windows are open. The baby cries a lot. The mother screams a lot. My firstborn cried a lot. And that sound really pushed me to my limits. I was tired all the time. I wonder if she's pushed to her limits. I wonder if she is tired all the time. I'm her neighbor, and I saw a man come over and stay for the weekend. I could hear her crying. I could hear him yelling. It made me so sad to think she was crying and 3 little kids in the house. Were they scared? Was she scared? I'm her neighbor, so when I made my next batch of chocolate chip cookies, I went over and rang her doorbell. I mean, we're both moms after all. She answered and I introduced myself. I'm your neighbor Joanne, and I thought you and the kids would like some cookies. She answered, I'm Angie, and we would love some cookies. Thank you. I smiled and she smiled. I left and she waved. I'm Angie's neighbor, and the next time I saw her, I invited her and the kids to come and play at my house. Angie and I drank coffee and talked. Angie is new to the area. She has no friends. Angie's newborn is difficult to calm. The young mother is overwhelmed, but now Angie has me to talk to. I was a neighbor. Then I became Angie's friend.
Authorities are reporting that a 3-month-old was found unresponsive after a call was made to 911 by the child's mother stating the child was not moving. A preliminary investigation indicates the child was sleeping with his father, who rolled over him, smothering him in the blankets. The mother had been investigated in the past for issues related to domestic violence and for the suspicion of child abuse. The father has a history of drug and alcohol abuse. The family is not being identified to protect their identity and the identities of their other 2 children who were asleep in another room at the time of death.
Angie drops her infant son Alex off at my childcare center every weekday so she can work. Alex always cries when she tries to leave. I can tell it upsets Angie. I want to let her know it's all right. I want to tell her a lot of kids cry. Angie is always in a hurry. I want to find a way to talk with Angie. I have been an infant teacher for a long time. Alex will do better if I can find a way to reach out to Angie. Parents are critical to their child's success in daycare, school, and life. Alex is crying again. Angie is in a hurry again, and I hesitate. I care about Alex and I care about Angie, but she doesn't know that yet. It's easy for me to care for children. It's not easy for me to approach a busy parent, but I care about Alex. I will find a way to talk with Angie. I take Alex from Angie this morning, and he's crying. I look at Angie and say, "It must be so hard for you to leave him when he cries." She nods and says, "I just don't know what to do. I have to go to work." I ask her if he cries at home too. She says, "I feel like he cries all the time. He really makes me mad sometimes. Is that normal? I mean, to be mad at a baby?" I tell her it is normal, and a crying baby is very stressful, and that a lot of kids cry. I offer to help her. I give Angie some tips on how to calm Alex and ask her to try them and let me know if they work. I tell her it won't happen overnight, and that if they don't work, together we'll find other strategies. I share what I know with stressed parents. I let Angie know she is not alone.
Today I started by debriefing all the work from yesterday, picking out which contacts were done, which required home visits, which ones my supervisor would take to DCFS. The phone was ringing. A parent couldn't get her child to go to school. My partner and I went to the house. Ari is 9, mad at the world, and his mom is afraid his medication isn't working. He finally smiled at us, put on his clothes, and got his backpack. Another small victory in the life of a juvenile crisis worker. My partner had answered a call from a school counselor. She was worried about a 13-year-old who's cutting herself. Her mother had said she would go to counseling, but that hasn't happened. Shelley went on our list of follow-ups. We stopped at a dirty house, met a mom who's really depressed. She said she works third shift, her kids won't pick up. We talked about Prevention Services Network, talked with her about adult crisis. We agreed we would come back in a few days. Then the call from the hospital. A 3-month-old child was dead. Crisis needed to come. I knew what this is like. The last time I viewed a dead child at the hospital, I was hoping this would never happen again. I wondered for a moment, why do I do this? I got in the car, took a deep breath, remembered that there might be other children in that home who were in danger. I thought about the words to speak to a person who suffers such a tragic loss. Started driving.
I'm a Head Start teacher in a mixed-age early childhood classroom. I have 14 children in my classroom. Cameron is 4 years old and he is giving me a hard time. He won't sit still for reading time. He runs around the room. He hits other kids. He needs a lot more attention than most of my other little Head Starters. And I have a class of 14. He exhausts me, and oh boy, I bet he gives Mom a run for her money at home. I decided to try some behavior management strategies with Cameron. By the end of each week, I can see improvement, but then he goes home for the weekend, and I start all over on Monday. I hope his mom, Angie, can come to our open house next week. Maybe we can talk. Maybe I can share my ideas. She needs to trust me first. I need to develop a relationship. Maybe then I can help. Angie does come to the open house. She doesn't seem to know anyone there. I wonder if she's new in town. I want to tell her how Cameron has been acting out, but I decide to take a different approach. I tell her that Cameron loves to paint, and I don't tell her he painted the windowsill. I ask her if she lets him paint at home. She answered that he does paint at home, and she hangs his pictures up in the room. We chatted for a while about other things. Cameron does well, and I asked Angie if she had any concerns. She said Cameron seems angry and lashes out at home. I told her I've seen that at school too. She asked me what I do about it. I explained some of my strategies and how she could use them at home. Now we are really talking. I think she trusts me. We can develop a relationship. Now I can help. I want children to succeed in Head Start and beyond, and for this community to be filled with citizens who care about each other. I want parents to know they are valued. As a Head Start teacher, I have a vital part in building strong families.
You may have seen me at Country Thunder, trying to keep people safe. As a detective for the Kenosha County Sheriff's Department, I also investigate sensitive crimes. The most difficult case for me is a baby's death. I dread that call, telling me someone reported to crisis that a baby was found unresponsive. Unresponsive, I know what that means. My job is to try and determine how the death happened. This involves trying to determine if the parents are responsible, either by accident or intent. Trying to interview parents in the middle of a highly emotional situation is not easy. However, it is my job to uncover the truth. That's why, even though it's difficult, the interview is necessary. You should understand that I usually only have the parents to explain a sleeping or co-sleeping routine of the child. I got the call to investigate. The mother called 911 and reported the co-sleeping death of her baby. Was it by accident or intent? I don't always get a clear answer on how the baby died. And I don't always get a clear answer on why the baby died. That is what makes it difficult to work these cases. Some of my coworkers have had the experience with this family. They picked up the 4-year-old a couple of years ago, just walking down the street, wearing a diaper. 2 years old, on the street, in a diaper, in November. Mom was referred to parenting classes, but the dad talked her out of going. Accident or intent? Maybe if we could have convinced them to get help, this wouldn't have happened. There are many questions and the helpless feeling that we let this child down. There are no clear answers. That is what makes these cases so difficult to work.
Kylie is my third child to go through Head Start. I feel like an old pro. I know this place inside and out. I come to every open house and feel at home here. I've lived in Kenosha my entire life and really like what this city has to offer. I remember my first time coming for an open house. I wanted so badly to make a good impression so my son would be proud of me. I was actually kind of scared, and if I'm being honest, schools intimidate me. One of the teachers introduced me to another mom who was more experienced with Head Start. She showed me the ropes, and we are still friends. If it wasn't for that teacher, I might never have come back to another open house. At the open house, Kylie pulled me over to meet one of her little friends, a boy named Cameron. He was standing with his mom, who was holding a baby in her arms. She was standing alone and looking kind of lost. There are a lot of people here, a lot of kids, and a lot of noise. She brought back memories of how I must have looked when I first came here. It put a smile on my face. I let Kylie bring me over and I introduced myself. She said her name is Angie and that she's new to Head Start. She seemed really happy that Kylie asked Cameron to play with her. "Your daughter is friendly," she said. "Cameron needs friends." I responded that everyone needs friends. I asked her to join us for the family meal. Angie is kind of quiet, but very nice. I told her that I attend a lunch for parents at the job center on Wednesdays. I asked her if she'd like to join me next Wednesday. I told her she'd meet other parents, get a free lunch, and hear a presentation. She said she had never been to the job center. I laughed and told her that I'm both her official Head Start ambassador and her Parent Talk Lunch ambassador. She said, "I have an ambassador. That makes me feel important." I responded, "You are important, just like I'm important. We are important to our children." Angie said, "We are, aren't we? I think I'll join you for lunch, Ambassador." She smiled and said she had to go home. I thought to myself that as a parent, I know I need other parents to talk with. I enjoy other parents and I learn from them. I hope Angie comes to lunch. She needs other parents too. I am the parent who knows what it's like to feel isolated. Someone welcomed me to Head Start. I welcomed Angie.
As supervisor for the Child Protective Services Unit of the Division of Children and Family Services, I supervise the social workers who operate the Child Abuse Access Line. I also have a staff of social workers who do initial investigations of suspected child abuse and neglect when those calls are received. Many questions arise after a call. Is there present danger? Is there a pending danger? What is the history that our unit has with the family being reported? Is there drug or alcohol abuse in the home? Sometimes families are reported repeatedly and a pattern emerges. Once the report is made, there are decisions to be made. Every workday at 11 in the morning, we debrief the calls that came in the day before. The report might be screened out. This means that the family will be referred to voluntary services such as those provided by Prevention Services Network. Maybe a parenting class will help mom find an alternative to screaming at her children and will stop the calls from the neighbor who is just trying to help. However, there are times when the referral is screened in. Now an investigation must be made, as well as a thorough and comprehensive assessment. Collateral people will be contacted and questioned about the family. Mandatory services may be put into the home, such as a parent mentor. Sometimes a petition needs to be made to the court to detain the children. Everything we do in my unit is done to protect children within a framework of parental rights. We want families to stay together. We want to help them get the services they need to become strong. We know from crisis that there has been an infant co-sleeping death in our community. We will be debriefing with our team to answer questions and make decisions. The decisions we make are not easy. We don't always like the answers to the questions we ask. My unit is called Child Protective Services, and that is our goal. We provide services to protect children.
Hi, I'm Veronica, and I'm a nurse with the Division of Health. We're one of the partner agencies for Parent Talk Lunch. I help set up the room, deliver the lunches, and sometimes I do the presentation. We serve lunch to about 20 parents every week. I enjoy the interaction with the parents and the conversations that develop. Today is my day to present. My topic today is how to handle stress. The parents always like the stress presentations. I've met a lot of stressed parents since we started this program in 2002. I'm always touched by the stories the parents share about how they cope. Talk about resiliency. Today I notice a young mom coming in who I have not seen before. I welcome her and ask her to sign in. At the same time, Sylvia, one of our regular attendees, calls her name and asks her to come over and sit with her. I learned that her name is Angie. I begin my presentation by asking parents what stresses them out, what pushes their buttons, so to speak. They respond with the usual responses: lack of money, no job, poor health. It's always the same answer every single time I give this presentation. Someone says, "My kids, they drive me crazy. I can't control them." We start to talk about healthy ways to relieve stress. It's a fun group and the discussion is lively. We talk about resources that are available at the Job Center, such as the PSN Family Resource Center, where parents can get more specific information about their children's behaviors. We talk about resources available through the Division of Health and how to access them. I tell them that if anyone has specific questions, I am available to talk one-on-one after lunch. When lunch is over, Angie approaches me. She tells me she thinks she needs more help. She tells me she finds she is sinking and that her son's behavior and stress she is under is out of control, and she feels like a bad parent. I tell her that good parents ask for help and that resources are available for her. I walk her over to the PSN Resource Center and introduce her to a service coordinator. I opened a door for a parent in need, because if not me, then who?
I wish there was an easy way to describe my job. I am a forensic interviewer with the Child Advocacy Center. You probably don't know what that means. In its most simple terms, I talk to kids who have had horrible things happen to them or who have seen horrible things. It's complicated to talk about, so bear with me as I try to explain. Any unexplained infant death is investigated, and it's my job to talk with Angie's son Cameron and her daughter Maria about the death of their infant brother. It's a multi-step process. I prepare myself for the interviews with the children by getting basic background information, but I really want to hear what the kids have to say. First, I meet with a multidisciplinary team of professionals who have intimate knowledge of this family. They share what they have learned about the family over the years. You'll meet some of them today. It appears that this was another needless death caused as a result of co-sleeping. However, the next step is to assess to the best of our ability that nothing sinister occurred. Once I had my background information, it was time I started the interviews by talking with Cameron. Cameron had a hard time sitting in the small chair at the table in the talking room. He circled the table, crawled on top of the table, then darted under the table. I know how to get kids to talk. It's what I do best. Cameron started talking and I started to learn. I learned he loves Spider-Man, that he lost his pet cat after his dad threw her out the second-story window, and that he did not appear to know the difference between a truth and a lie. He clearly cared about his mom and worried about her, especially when Dad drank beer and got mean. He wanted to know why she never wants to get out of bed or play with him since the baby came. Finally, I learned that the police and ambulance came to his house last night and took the baby. Cameron was confused because baby Alex was being good. He was sleeping and not crying like he always did. Cameron talks and I listen and I learn. Then I interviewed Maria to again question, listen, and learn. Maria is 14 going on 30. Maria knew exactly how to care for the baby, her brother, and even her mother. When Mom's ex-husband got drunk, she knew just what to do to keep him from hurting her mother. She had a blank stare and did not say exactly what she did to keep Mom safe. She refused to call him Dad like her younger brother did. Maria was clearly grieving the loss of the baby. This was enough questioning for Maria this day. The investigation needs to go on and come back to all of us. My interviews yielded no clear disclosures and more concerns than when we started. The situations are complex. There are no easy answers. If only there was a scan that could tell us all what we need to know. If only Mom had gotten help earlier. If only one of us could have stopped this. I'm just a forensic interviewer. I listen, I learn, and I console.
It's my turn to work open hours for the Family Resource Center. You never know who's going to walk in and what they might want. Today, this lady, Angie, walked in with her infant and her 4-year-old Cameron. She said Veronica from Parent Talk Lunch recommended she stop by. She seemed nervous and hesitated. She said, "I don't know what to do." I smiled at her and asked her what was on her mind. She said she's losing it. I told her I have begun a lot of conversations with parents who use the same 2 words. Is it the kids, I ask her? I know that when parents are stressed out that kids misbehave for attention. She said, it's the kids, it's their father, I have no money, I'm all alone. I hear these laments from parents who walk into the center all the time. There are a lot of lonely parents in Kenosha. I said, let's talk about what PSN has to offer. I wrote up a PSN referral for Angie. She will be connected to a service coordinator who will meet with her to assess just what she needs to keep her family strong. Service coordinators build on family strengths. I invite Angie to other activities that PSN offers. She said she already goes to Parent Talk Lunch and is interested in Women's Circle. I think she'll like Women's Circle. And I tell her about Spotlight. I sense that she's relaxing a little. I haven't lived in Kenosha very long, she shares. I moved here to get away from a bad relationship. It was really hard to do. She said sometimes I doubt myself when I see my kids act up. I tell her there is help for her too. There's counseling available and support groups. I tell her that her service coordinator will connect her to whatever she feels she needs. She says, maybe I can be a better parent if I get help too. I tell her she is absolutely correct. Caring for the caregiver is essential, I remind her. She laughed and said, that'll be a change. I'm used to putting myself last. Working in the Resource Center, I have a chance to connect to families every day. It's not easy to ask for help. It's not easy to admit something is wrong.
When a child comes to us under the suspicion of abuse or neglect, I try to get a better understanding of what may have happened. As a medical provider with the CAC or Child Advocacy Center, my job is to give kids a checkup and to get them connected with other medical services if needed. This may include lab tests, x-rays, or medications. When a child dies unexpectedly, possibly from abuse, I see other children in the home for an examination. I talk to Angie about her children's health and medical history. It's an opportunity to determine if there have been other incidents. Today I saw Angie's surviving children, Cameron and Maria. I know from the forensic interviewer that there is a suspicion of abuse. Cameron has not said anything about getting hurt by an adult. Maria, however, made comments that may be concerning for sexual abuse. I try to make it fun in the checkup room with books, bubbles, and toys. I got Cameron's attention with a light-up airplane, and we began to play together. We try to let children just be children. Then I began the exam. When I examined Cameron's skin, I found healed injuries in the shape of a loop. These injuries are typically indicative of physical abuse. I asked him how he got his owies. He was hesitant, but he told me Mommy's boyfriend did that a long time ago with a belt. Maria was shy about her examination. I didn't want her to feel scared or uncomfortable and asked if she wanted her mom in the room. She liked having a choice and decided to have Angie come in for the exam. It was important to me that Maria knows she is safe. The children I see often come from homes that are not safe for them, but they are safe here with me. I showed her the equipment we would use and explained that nothing will hurt. While we did her exam, we talked about school and activities she likes to do. Everything looked normal for a 13-year-old girl. I explained to Maria that even though bad things have happened, her exam is normal. It is important for Maria to understand that her body is healthy. Angie was relieved the children were physically well. I encouraged her to get counseling for the children for their mental health. All members of the family will need help to understand what happened to baby Alex. I know child abuse investigations and medical examinations can be scary for kids and families, so I provide comfort and help kids understand I can be trusted and that they are safe.
Hi, I'm Angie, mommy of 3. I have Alex, my little baby, my 4-year-old Cameron, and my oldest, Maria. She's 14. I moved to Kenosha to get away from Alex and Cameron's father, Alexander. I was being abused, and then I found out that Alex was assaulting Maria. My worst nightmare had come true. So I packed up my family and I came here. I don't know anyone here. I'm afraid and lonely. And not everyone knows about Maria, so my family thought I was nuts to leave. Do you have any idea how hard it is to talk about the sexual assault of your child by someone that you love? I don't think so. But I was right to leave, though. I had to protect my family. Coming here was the best decision I've ever made. I'll never forget when my neighbor brought me some cookies. I mean, she couldn't have known that I was having a really rough time. Alexander found us, and when he showed up at the door, he was all apologetic and sweet, so I let him in. But he hasn't changed. He's still drinking, and he's still violent. We fought, and then the doorbell rang, and suddenly my neighbor's just there being nice. Alex is in daycare, and Cameron's in Head Start, and the teachers there are so awesome. I didn't want to tell them that I was having issues, but somehow they just seemed to know. They made me feel really welcomed, and they made me feel normal. And I hadn't felt normal in a long time. One of the parents invited me to lunch at the job center. I had a blast. I learned about Prevention Services Network, and now I have a service coordinator. They told me that their services are voluntary. That means that I choose to ask for help, which made me feel powerful. It made me feel like a good parent. I'm currently taking some parenting classes, and PSN got Maria hooked up with some counseling, and I'm in counseling too. I was drowning when I moved here. I mean, what in the world would have happened if I had continued to let Alex's father stay with us? But I didn't let him stay. I'm strong, and I know how to protect my children. And now I feel like I belong in Kenosha. My name is Angie, and I am sure not a perfect parent. But I've learned that nobody's perfect. Thank you, Kenosha, for reaching out to me. You saved my family.
Because a neighbor brought cookies.
There was no story in the news.
Because an infant teacher shared strategies to calm a baby.
A call was never made to crisis.
Because a Head Start teacher saw what Cameron did well.
There was no investigation.
Because another parent reached out at an open house.
There was no Child Protective Services called.
Because a nurse talked about stress during a community lunch.
There was no forensic interview.
Because a young, scared mom asked for help.
There was no medical examination.
Who have you welcomed lately?
When is the last time that you offered to help a stressed parent? Be silent no more. Become a part of this anthology.